Now, last Sunday, Tyreek Hill took himself out the game. He disrespected the city of Miami, disrespected the Miami Dolphins, and yeah, he didn't get in the game. In the fourth quarter, Mike McDaniel was looking for him. He was told it wasn't an injury related. So yeah, and then Tyreek Hill in the press conferences after the game said, I'm out. I got to do what's best for my family. Basically saying he's tired of losing with the Dolphins and what's going on. But it was reported later on this week that there's been no formal trade request or anything. But with this situation, it's best to move on. Let's be real. And this situation is an indictment on Mike McDaniel and this organization. This team is not This is not an organization that's a winning culture. We don't see this shit happen with the Chiefs unless it is Tyreek Hill requesting a trade and trying to get paid. And we see this is very much a situation of the grass isn't greener on the other side. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, they were supposed to be together for a while. But Tyreek Hill, he wanted that bag. The Chiefs weren't going to give it to him, and he chose the money over winning, and his ass got into Miami, and he was saying Tua was a better quarterback. Tua was a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes, only to find out Tua don't take care of himself. Tua will be always getting concussions, always hurt, never available, and in the big moments, Tua doesn't show up. He doesn't play well in the big moments, doesn't play well in the cold, and yeah, Mike McDaniel's not the coach to be holding players accountable, or else this shit wouldn't happen. All these people that, played for the Dolphins, or Jordan Brooks, who plays for the Dolphins currently, they call out this team for being soft, just how the dysfunction that's going on. Vic Fangio got the fuck out of there and it's the best defensive coordinator in football once again. So there's just a lot of question marks about this team, how it's been run. Tyreek Hill, though, with this situation, I think you should move on from him. He's 30 years old, down year, first down year, he wants out. This is not a player you want as your highest paid, as one of your highest paid players, one of your most important players in your franchise. This is not the leader you need on your team. This is not a leader that's going to help you build a winning culture when there's a lack of winning culture right now. So Tyreek Hill, even if he doesn't request a trade, get his ass out of Miami. There's a lot you could get for him. You could probably get a first-round pick. He's an elite receiver, one of the best receivers in the NFL. There's more important things on this roster that, this team needs to look at other than, worrying about your diva receiver that's 30 years old. It's ironic, though, he wants out of Miami with, the taxes and how good it is over there with the pay. And he has like a bunch of kids. It's just ironic with that situation. But Tyreek Hill, I think he should be out of Miami. I think the organization should get him out of there. Some teams I think should pick up the phone and should be really interested. The Washington Commanders. Could you imagine Scary Terry, Tyreek Hill, and Jaden Daniels? Jaden Daniels would throw 5,000 yards with a weapon like that. It's just a guy that's going to take the top off the defense. Scary Terry on the other side. Yeah, that would just be really, really, really fun to watch because Jaden Daniels throws the deep ball better than most of the quarterbacks in the league. That's what he does at an elite level, at a high level. So Washington, what they're building too, and they were interested in Brandon Ayuk. They were interested in adding another receiver to this team. I think Tyreek Hill makes a lot of sense. That's a team that has a cap space to make a move like that. Take on that contract or extend Tyreek Hill at some point. And I think that's a spot he'd be happy at. I mean, Jaden Daniels banged up with that rib injury, but for the most part, he stayed healthy this season. And for the most part, he's been a top 10 quarterback this year in the NFC. The Commanders are ready right now in the playoffs. That's an opportunity. If you get a Tyreek Hill, get a weapon in there, improve the defense a little, Washington could be onto something, contending for a championship potentially. Baltimore, I think, is another spot. Tyreek Hill with Lamar Jackson. I think you'd be really happy in Baltimore playing with Lamar Jackson. And Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely, Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, the weapons they have. They need that dominant receiver. Zay Flowers is a 1,000-yard receiver, a really good receiver, but he's not a Tyreek Hill. He's not a top 5 receiver. And if Lamar gets a top 5 receiver with the top 5 running back and the offensive line getting better and better, defense, Zach Orr, how he's calling that defense really good, how he has that defense plan, really good defensive coordinator. I think, yeah, if they don't win the Super Bowl this year and they get Tyreek Hill the next year, they would win it with Tyreek Hill. Lamar would have an even better season passing the ball, probably 5,000 yards too. Anybody who gets Tyreek, probably 5,000 yards because Tyreek Hill is just that much of a playmaker. He almost had a 2,000-yard receiving season in Miami a couple seasons ago. So yeah, when Tyreek Hill has his quarterback healthy, Lamar Jackson is a quarterback that stayed healthy for the most part. I think he would click very well with Lamar, and that offense for Baltimore would be really explosive. They could hit you from any angle. Derrick Henry, Tyreek Hill, Lamar Jackson running the ball too. That would be really fucking scary. You look at Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Tyreek Hill's probably looking from a distance like, man, that's a winning culture. I miss that. Baltimore would be able to give him that. Baltimore's a winning culture. After Patrick Mahomes, it's Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson that win just as much as Patrick Mahomes in the regular season and put themselves in position for a Super Bowl title. Put themselves in position to make it to a Super Bowl. So yeah, Tyreek Hill would be happy in Baltimore. And could you imagine Tyreek Hill going against the Chiefs with Lamar Jackson? That would be must-see television. So those are two landing spots I think would be great for Tyreek Hill. And I think for the Miami Dolphins, yeah, you need to reevaluate Chris Grier at the GM position. You need to reevaluate Mike McDaniel. Do you have the right guys to help you build a winning culture? Chris Grier, I feel like he's been missing more than he's been hitting. I don't think he's put this team in position to win like he should be. And I think Mike McDaniel, great offensive coordinator. Offensively, the schemes, the play calling, all that's great unless it's, really cold. 0-7 in cold games. In the playoffs, they choke. They don't play well. Haven't won a playoff game yet. In terms of, building a winning culture and in terms of holding players accountable, we don't see that from Mike McDaniel. So I think he would be better suited as an offensive coordinator than he is as a head coach. He needs an alpha male head coach like a Dan Campbell. Somebody that's going to be calling the shots, that's going to be, chewing people out, chewing players out. A player's coach still, I think Dan Campbell's a perfect example of a coach he would coach really well with. But yeah, as an offensive coordinator, as an offensive guru, as an offensive mastermind, he's great at that. But in terms of just everything else you need from a head coach, I don't think Mike McDaniel gives you that. And this is a team that displays that. Just how poorly they play in the cold. They are very much a reflection of their head coach. And I like Mike McDaniel. I think if he was fired, I would want to interview him for the Bears, but I just don't think he's that Mike Vrabel, that tough coach, that coach that's going to, get the most out of their players. I don't think he's that guy. He's a player's coach, but we see too much shit come out of players that played in Miami, just calling out how things are being ran over there. So just too much going on, too much dysfunction, not enough of what a winning culture should be in Miami. So I think they should reevaluate that. And if I'm the Dolphins owner, I'm looking at that. I'm firing Chris Grier and I'm firing Mike McDaniel. And they honestly should have looked at Michael Penix Jr. last year in the draft. For another year, Tua gets hurt. He's out. He missed a lot of time. The Dolphins were the worst team in football with Tua out. And unfortunately, when he got back, Tua was playing well. But it came to a certain point. We can't afford to lose some of these games. We can't afford to lose to the Texans. We can't afford to lose the Buffalo game. Like, you just couldn't afford to lose any more football games. And the big football games, they did lose. Against the Texans, it wasn't the best performance from Tua. The Packers dominated the Dolphins as well. So, and you lost to the Arizona Cardinals too. So more often than not, you're losing big football games. And Tua, I think, is a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. When it comes to those big football games, he loses them. When it comes to those cold football games, he loses them. So it's just, your ceiling, I feel like you've maxed it. You reached it with Tua, especially with, you look at his career, 10 games in the first season, 13 games the season after that, 13 games the season after that, 17 games last year, pretty healthy year for him. You made the playoffs and you lost to the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. We knew that was going to happen. It wasn't even competitive. Tyreek Hill was dropping passes. Tua didn't play well. Mike McDaniel didn't coach well. So just a story of what what this team has been with Tua and Mike McDaniel. And this year, 11 games. 11 high-level games from Tua. Still threw almost 3,000 yards passing in 11 games. Like, the production is there against the really bad football teams. But like I said, against the Texans, against the Packers, you just see these performances where you lay a goose egg. So I think you look in the draft, Dylan Gabriel Quarterback from Oregon, that's somebody you need to monitor. Second round, third round, that's somebody you should be taking because this is an accurate quarterback. 5'11", but if he wasn't 5'11", if he was a little bit taller, we would look at him differently as a prospect. He can make all the throws, has the confidence. He puts the ball right in the receiver's hands. Like he throws a beautifully accurate ball, has all the fundamentals, great traits. Like this is a quarterback that could be what Bo Nix is with the Denver Broncos. Like in the right spot, he could be a franchise quarterback, I think. And in any other spot, this is a quality backup quarterback. So I think in the second or third round, Dylan Gabriel should be somebody they're looking at. And with, Tyreek Hill, if Tyreek Hill stays, Jalen Waddle, Jonnu Smith, some of the weapons that the Dolphins have, A-Chain, like he could facilitate a really good offense. And that's a quarterback that could give you insurance behind Tua, because I don't think they're going to move on from Tua. I would, go in a different direction after this next upcoming season. But Dylan Gabriel, that's somebody I think could take over the reins and be a good franchise quarterback for the Dolphins and give them what they're lacking with Tua: health, availability, and who knows, developed well. That's somebody that could, give them what they want at the quarterback position long term. Defensively, I like the defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver. He's getting interviews for head coaching positions, head coaching vacancies around the NFL. The Bears are interviewing him, and what he's done with this Dolphins defense, this is a top defense in the NFL because of him, the game plan, because of him, play calling, all of that, what he's gotten out of, some of their defensive players. Jordan Brooks is having a good year. Tyrell Dodson, that was a good add, a good addition. Secondary has been playing well. Chop Robinson, 6 sacks in his rookie season. He's been great off the edge. And you look at this defensive line next season: Chop Robinson, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Zach Zeiler. Ooh, that's gonna be one of the best defensive lines in the NFL, top 5 at the very lowest. So they have potential with that. Look into Dylan Gabriel. And trade Tyreek Hill and reevaluate Mike McDaniel, the head coach, and Chris Greer. And that's what I would do if I was the Dolphins GM. I would overlook everything, see what we can do to be better, draft Dylan Gabriel. Some people thought the NFC North was going to be the worst division in football this season. They thought it was going to be as bad as the NFC South.